Okay, so hello everyone. Thanks for coming here, even if you are online or on-site, especially if you are on-site. The ones on-site already got their gift. And online, I don't know what I'm going to give you guys, but I'm just going to say thank you for now. And again, sorry for the inconvenience. Sometimes one can't control his body, and that's what happened to me today. I just didn't hear the alarm, and thus I didn't wake up. So feel free to insult me or complain. It's all good. I'm not going to read them anyways. So, once again, thank you guys for coming here, and let's get started. So today we're going to do web exploitation. This is the before last workshop, which is planned. I mean, the last workshop going to be planned Monday, not next week, the week after. So the same week of the CTF. We're going to have the Cybersecurity Day on Friday, and then 24th of this month, which is Monday, we're going to have the last lecture, which is going to be targeting MISC. Maybe it's not going to take a long, it's just going to be like 1 hour, 1 hour and a half, probably not the whole 2 hours, but we're going to take the whole 2 hour slot. It's going to also be between 2 p.m. and also 4 p.m. So just so that you guys know. And yeah, so let's get started. Yeah, you guys, everyone here knows me, and so I'm just going to go through this agenda today. Okay, I think I didn't update the agenda. So the only thing that I updated was Tolkien Web and Web Yametek Dasai. So we're just going to have like 2 parts of this lecture. The first part is going to be related to like web in general. The second part, we're going to try to attack web with different type of injections and different types of attack vectors that we can perform on a web. But we're going to take it slow. First, we're going to understand what we have in hand, and later on, I hope you guys are going to understand what is a SQL injection, at least in the context of normal like SQL, and also how to perform them, and how to test them yourself. Okay, so why web? Why web is super important today, and why pen testing web is one of the most famous categories and also one of the famous topics in cybersecurity. First of all, it's real world relevant. I mean, it doesn't matter what you are trying to register for. You are always related to the internet, and you are always trying to access some sort of a website or some sort of an application, and so on and so forth. Even a mobile application can fall into this category, even though not always. It falls into this category if we are talking about the connection between the application, what we have in our phone or in our website, to the backend. This is the kind of communication we are talking about here. Second of all, it's accessible and easy to get started. So everyone here have at some point in his life thought, okay, I like IT, I want to learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Or am I wrong? I mean, the majority that talk or think about development in general, first thing they come across is web development. Why? Because it's something you can see directly. So when you are getting started, you always don't understand what you're doing until you see something. So when you are writing a web page, you can see that it is actually rendering what you are writing, which makes it much easier to attract people from one side. Also, the second side, it's much easier to get into. Also, web, at least from my personal opinion, I think it's much easier than the other categories. And you guys remember the meme of binary exploitation vs the web exploitation? It's so real. Binary exploitation requires literally a really in-depth knowledge of how computers work, also how network work, also literally how it's so protocol, system, machine independent that it might, like your attack might not work just with like some small changes. In web, on the other hand, no, because web most of the time, again, this is just my personal opinion, web most of the time it's standardized, because the developers that write this, they kind of have like a guideline or like a way to write code which is always the same. So the moment you will find a way to get through it, it's just gonna by default work with everything else that are using the same thing. Here I'm talking about the version, because if you change the version of a specific web server or a specific, I don't know, a website or Python or something like this, the result's going to be completely different. So this is just so that you guys know. Also, again, it's interactive. 1 + 1 is equal to 2. If you're changing anything in CSS, it's going to immediately be rendered to you, and you're going to immediately see what is going on. JavaScript might not fall into this category because even JavaScript developers don't understand what JavaScript is doing. And this is fine because this is how it was intended to be. So now, this is also the best meme of the year. Imagine a world where all the sites are responsive. Of course, this will never happen because there's always something broken. And yeah, I feel sorry about the web developers. But anyways, requirements. OK, of course, the requirements that I'm going to give you guys here are just the tip of the iceberg. There is so much that we're not going to cover today. But I hope by at least showing you guys where is the iceberg, you guys are going to dive deeper and you're going to try to learn this stuff on your own. So again, today, just getting an introduction or an idea about like this web things. And it's just for you guys to get the first step. So I'm just helping you guys get the first step. But it's all up to you whether you're going to go upstairs or just stay still. OK, so the requirements that I personally think are important. First thing is networking and protocols. You have to understand how different types of protocols are interacting with each other, how our data can be transmitted from one computer to another. What does it mean for us to connect to a website in the internet? What is a DNS? How does HTTPS work? How does HTTP work? All of this is relevant. You don't have to know all of this to follow up this lecture that we're going to have today, but for the future reference, if you want to get better at web development, or not web development, but web security, and reach a point where you can find 0 days, these are a must. Like at the very least, you have to have a good knowledge of these stuff. First thing, again, is networking and protocols. Second thing is programming languages. Of course, this is depending on which kind of a website you're trying to attack. It always depends whether the backend is written in Python. Is it Ruby? Is it, I don't know, Java? Please not Java, but JavaScript or anything else. So it's really depending on the language, because if you are trying to do an assessment and try to understand what is going on, you have to learn the language. You have to be able to read the language and understand it. Don't tell me that you're going to just take the whole code, give it to ChatGPT, and tell it to explain it to you. This is not going to work, especially if you're talking about huge code bases. There is no way an AI can read through the whole thing and give you an accurate response to what you are trying to ask. So if you are trying to get good at security, web security, you have to know the languages that are used for this kind of stuff. This is not only in web. Again, if you remember what we said in reverse engineering, you have to know the language of the binary to understand how it was built and how it was translated to wherever it was at, like in the output. This is from one hand. Yeah, JavaScript, I'm going back to it again here. It's really important. Doesn't matter whether your website is written in Python, in any language. JavaScript is always what is happening in the background, and you have to know it, and you have to master it if you want to find bugs. Because most of the time, you think that something does something, but in the other hand, it might do something else with a different case scenario. So JavaScript is like, it's fundamental. It's like the core of web hacking. Like it's where everything like stands. Yeah, the last 2 points are pretty obvious. First one is Linux and Bash. We always we need to know a little bit of Linux because most servers are basically running Linux. There's absolutely no way any server will be running on Windows. I mean, 99% of the servers in the world are running on Red Hat or similar distributions. So knowing a little bit of Linux and Bash will always comes into hand. Last thing is learning how web servers works. And I think this is pretty obvious. You have to know how you can send a request to a web server, how you can interact with it, what are the verbs of the web server. Do you guys know what is a verb when we are talking about HTTP or a request, please? Here. It's done.
Something like get,
exactly,
post, and stuff like that to tell what to do.
Yeah. So when we are trying to communicate with the, can I get a pen? There's no pen. Oh, nice. Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so let's just say this is your client. So this you are here. Doesn't matter what your client is. Okay, doesn't matter what your client is. It can be like a website, or it can be I don't know, a desktop application or a mobile application. It doesn't matter. And here in the backend we have like a server. Okay, it's all good. We have here a server. I'm also gonna paint it as it's another computer. A server is basically just another computer. It might not have a GUI, but it's also another computer, right? The way it's fine, it works, but thanks. The way this communication works should be always standardized, because you cannot have this machine doing something and the phone doing something else, and you're expecting the server to understand both. This is too much. So we always want to have a language or a specific way we are talking between two different systems on the same network. I mean, everything in the internet, we can assume that all of it is in the World Web Network. So just to make sure. Now, the way to communicate with a specific server, there's always verbs. Verbs is basically what you are asking the web server to do. Like, what do you want from it? Because if you are just asking it to give you something, you can just invoke a GET request. So a GET request basically just asks a server to give you something. It's GET. If you want to ask a server to do something for you, you use POST. POST is asking the server to either modify something, change something, or give me something back. There is some other requests, like for example, put, delete. We're not going to talk about these, because for now, or the most important two are like GET and POST. This type of communication is what we call API. API is basically this interface that allows two computers to communicate with each other. So you guys, I think everyone here knows the famous example. The API is basically, if you are in a restaurant, the client is you, this is the kitchen, and the API is basically the server that's going to be like serving you food. So he's getting some stuff from the kitchen and giving it to you back. Sometimes you are giving it money and asking it to go to like to pay, like just give you the recipe and pay. So you see this type of communication? This is how API works, and this is how a network works. There's some other type of communication like WebSockets, but we are not talking about this now. We're just talking about API. Again, API, the famous two are GET and POST, okay? Let's continue. Web pen testing. Okay, so web pen testing is basically testing the security of web application. I think this should be already clear. Now, what is a web application? Can someone tell me here what is a web application? What makes an application a web application? Please.
So a web application is an interface and a backend. It does something for us. It's not just static web page.
Exactly. Okay, good. Does anyone here have any additional inputs? Okay, good. So what makes a web application is multiple things. First, you have an interface, like what we talked about. We have a backend that does some logic. And we also have a database. A database is where we are trying to store data. Sometimes it might be on the same computer, but they're going to be separated. They're not going to be running the same thing. If they are both in the same computer, most of the time, I'm not talking about always, most of the time, they're going to be containerized. So they're going to be running in a Docker container, and you're going to create a secure network between them, like between the two. Because the network between your backend and your database should never be accessible by anything else. The only thing that's allowed to access your database should be your backend. That's why sometimes there is some attacks. You invoke or you ask the server to basically query a request instead of you to either a database or another server within the same network. This is also one type of attacks. We're not going to talk about this now, but I'm just trying to tell you that the moment you can control what the backend is doing, you can assume that this whole security is done. Like, you can assume that there is a breach there. Like, whoever reached that point, he can do whatever he wants in our servers. Oh, just to make this thing clear. So again, web pen testing, it requires a deep understanding of how web application work. We just talked about how web applications actually works. We have a communication between front end, trying to communicate with the back end. Like these two are going to be over the network, the public internet. And then here within this computer, we're going to have these two communications. The front end should never be able to communicate directly with the database. Okay? Because the logic, how this communication with the database should always be in the back end. The front end can ask the back end to do something, but it can never do it itself to the back end, to the database directly. Does it make sense? Or does someone find any difficulties in understanding this part? Okay, good. Now, as we said, the web application is mostly made of front end, client side. You know, guys, why we are calling it client side, because you are a client. You're trying to communicate with a specific server, so you are the client. So that's like this computer right now is a client. Here, everything is a client. Where this stuff is hosted is the server. Where this data, like from where I'm pulling this, is the database. Like these stuff are rendered on the front end, but they're not coming from the front end. They're coming from the database through the back end. Okay? There is some other architectures. I know you don't have to tell me. There is like microservices. There is a lot of different type of architectures, but we are just trying to make things as simple as we can. Okay? So again, going back to this point, it's really important. If you want to be really good at web pen testing, you have to understand the languages. And you have to also understand their quirks. Because some languages, if you don't know what they are doing, you're not going to understand how you're going to attack them. I'm just going to give you an example, and later on we're going to dive deeper into it. SSTI, this type of attacks, it means server-side template injection. This type of attacks allows you to inject something in a template in the backend. The example that I did bring with me was a Flask application. So Flask is Python, so you are going to try to inject something in the backend. If you don't know how Python basically treats objects, you're not going to understand how this thing can be so vulnerable, and this thing, how can we attack it? So understanding the quirks of Python allows you to come and understand this SSTI. Okay? Also, last but not least, all of this should be on your own methodology. Like the way you do your pen testing, it will never be the same like everyone else. Like you might be the type of the guy who always checks from front end to back end. You might also be the type who checks first the endpoints. When you are talking about endpoints, we are talking about the URLs, the links that you can call from the front end. This is an endpoint. An endpoint is like an URL. You can ask it to either give you something or post something to it. Okay? So this methodology, it all depends on you. Some people do some automation before they even get started, like to get some leads, but it just depends. And along the way, you develop this sense of this is how I do things. It might work that you will copy how someone else is doing things, and it might work for you, but it might also not work. So always, if you think like, okay, this is not the way that I like doing things, I want to do them in a different way, it's fine. Okay? Architecture. So what I showed there, I'm just going back to this here again. You have to understand how this architecture actually works. So again, the communication between the database, the backend, the front end, how it all comes together, how the network can be restricted in this environment, all of this comes into play. Because sometimes, as I said, you can create a private network between these two. Then there is absolutely no way you can reach this. Sometimes there is a gateway between these two. Maybe there is like multiple backends communicating with the same database, and there is like a reverse proxy in between. I don't know. I'm just saying architectures, they might be different, but the way they work is always the same. It's all comes into like, if you understand how this stuff can be built, it's like Legos. If you have Lego pieces, you can build a lot of things. And if you know how to build things, it doesn't matter how many Legos I give you, you can build something out of it, right? So please try to understand what each piece of this Lego does and how it can interact with the other things to make sense of the whole architecture. Okay, so In these types of architectures, we have, if you are talking about the front end, we have specific types of attacks. They are called cross-site attacks. And the famous one of them is the XSS. I think it's the most famous one. And this attack, we will still come into more details about this in the following slides. But XSS, just remember, it's for the front end. So if you are trying to attack what you see and what is displayed. Okay? And server side, if you are talking about server side, we mostly talk about injections. What are injections? What are injections? Please?
So you add certain queries into HTTP requests, like where users from, or if you try to get some data table info or try to inject some code.
Yeah, good. So basically, injections are wherever through your user input, you can inject something which is not meant to be injected. I'll just give you an example. Let's say you have, do you guys know a little bit of SQL? A little bit? Okay. Let's say you are trying to select something, and you are trying to select something from something. Let's say from this thing you are trying to wait, I will just write it so that you guys can follow up. This thing you're trying to get, the user has control over it. Let's say I give as an input from, I will give a name, and then I will just close it. I will add this inside this. And I will just add dash dash. Dash dash is how you comment out whatever comes after. This thing, right now, this code will serve a different purpose. I mean, right now it will have the same purpose because I'm not doing anything. But if you are trying to get a password, you might have, like, for example, later on here, a password is equal to something. You can just remove it with like a dash dash, and before it you will have like or 1 equal to 1. This is the most famous SQL type of injection. Here, through my user input, I try to inject something in a place where it was not meant to be. And to do this type of injection, you have to understand how language works. You have to know that dash dash is actually commenting out everything else. This is really important. There is absolutely no way you will just randomly come to know that dash dash will basically comment everything out, like whatever comes after. You see what I'm trying to get you guys into? Languages, especially in web, every language has some quirks and also some weaknesses that you have to know. And to know them, you have to know the language. It's as simple as this. Okay, so this is how we can abuse databases. And most of the time it's through the backend. So the problem, like if you are able to perform this, the problem is not in the database. The problem is in the backend logic. Okay? Backend logic is the thing which runs these queries and construct them so that the DB will execute them. So the backend was the thing that trusted the user input and just let it do whatever it wants to do. You see? Sometimes we don't have the luxury to see how the backend works, like what's the source code of the backend. We don't have like this luxury sometimes. How we can bypass this? We can use sometimes like we can ask the database some questions, and based on its answer, like a direct communication, like here, I'm gonna be trying completely like some random things, but this has a little bit to do, something to do with the brute forcing. So we will be trying here multiple things, and based on the behavior of the database, you're gonna make sense of like what is this query? What is the backend actually building here, and what is requesting? You see what I mean? And this is called a blind SQL injection. So blind SQL injection is when you don't see the source code, so you don't identify the weakness directly, but based on the behavior of the database, you kind of make sense of it. Like you know what is actually going on. And there is a tool called SQL Map. By the way, it's banned in the CTF. You're not allowed to use it because it's just gonna destroy our infrastructure. It just keeps sending requests, and we don't want this. So. In the CTF, you will get source code from us. So just read the source code, try to understand what is going on there, and you will find the bug. It's not going to be hard. Okay? So going back to the main topic, some tools, just based on the inputs and also the output, we can make sense of the queries. But it's not always like this is not a one-to-one thing. It's not something that will always work. Okay? Yeah, also, attacking a website doesn't always mean like bypassing authentication or something. Sometimes it simply means stealing something. You might be able to steal passwords. You might be able to steal a session. You guys know what are sessions? We'll do them like in a few minutes. Sessions, you might say, but let me just make it simple. Session is what identifies you. If you are trying to make a communication, we don't want, yeah.
So stuff like JSON web tokens.
Exactly.
And stuff like that.
Yes. Yeah. This is a web token. So this thing, if you don't know what is a web token, is basically something that's gonna make a server identify you and doesn't require you to give it the password and your username each time you're trying to make a request. Because the moment you register, the server has to know that you are who you are claiming to be without each time telling it, okay, this is me. So instead of telling the server each time, hey, this is me, okay, this is you, and then asking it whatever you want to ask, it in one try, if you have this GWT token, you can keep communicating with it with the server. It has like a time span, and after it, it's just gonna be destroyed. And then you have to generate a new one. This is what we call, your session expired. Like when you see session expired, it means your GWT token or your token just expired, okay? Please, understanding how web work is the first step to learning like web exploitation. Anything you interact with on a daily basis, try to understand what is happening. Try to understand why this happened. Try to understand what will happen if I do this and what will happen if I do that. Of course, in a legal way. So these are the architectures. Common vulnerabilities. First one is the local remote file inclusion. Do you guys know what is this type of attacks? What does it require? What does it has? What is it? No one? This is the easiest type of attacks on in web. Yeah? Ali, save them.
By giving a specific path to the query string, we can access the files that we are not allowed to.
Exactly. This is really, really important. So file inclusion, either local or remote, will basically allow you to view files in the server which you're not allowed to view. And we're going to see an example of vulnerable code in a second. Just remember, local remote file inclusion will allow you to view files or some things in the server that you're not supposed to be viewing. Why? Because the server is serving you a website. And what is a website? It's a file. So sometimes you can just bypass. I'll just give you an example. Let's say a server is asking for a file in this URL, right? Basically, you're not going to use this URL anymore, and you're just going to add dot dot backslash dot dot backslash, and you're going to reach like wherever you're trying to go. And you're just going to be able to view it. Why? Because the server is just serving a site you are asking it to serve. Okay? Second thing, injections. I think we know right now what are injections. It's when you are trying to inject some stuff in the code. Like it's mostly in the backend, so you're trying to inject something there. There's injections also in the front end, but the injections in the front end are XSS. So just to make a difference. Here, most of the time, we talk about injections in the backend. Third thing is authentication. As we said, authentication is like how you can abuse like this mechanism, how you can abuse like GWT tokens, how you can bypass like the restriction that they are putting, how you can break them, yada, yada, yada. Last thing is a cross-site, which is the XSS attack in the front end, okay? There is some more vulnerabilities, like these are not the only ones. I'm just like stating here a couple of them because some of them will be in the CTF, that's why I mentioned them here. File inclusion. Okay, so it works by exploiting a dynamic file inclusion pattern. So basically, if you are trying to get a specific file from a server, you're just going to get it directly like this. And if you include it like this, by default, it's just going to retrieve it back. So it's just going to check which type of file you're trying to get here and just going to give it to you. It doesn't matter. If a user has control over this, he can literally get whatever he wants. And how you can do this? Something like this. So just going to specify file equal, just modify it. just gonna say file. I don't know. It's just gonna be a password. So it's just going back, reaching the password. And this will just include the password. You see how vulnerable is this? So this is the local file inclusion. This is the remote one. So remote one is when you ask it to give you something from another server, or from my server, from my evil server. Again, imagine your backend is another network. You might ask it to give you another file from another computer, or you might ask it to download something from my computer. You see? So file inclusion, this is mostly targeting PHP applications. We don't see this that much these days. Yeah, does it make sense? File inclusion now. If you have any question, just ask before we continue, because everything builds up.
The file you are trying to My question is about the file we are trying to get there. It's pwd. It doesn't has passwords.
This is just an example. But this can already give you all the users in the server, first thing. Also, it's not always stated that you will never see passwords in the etc passwd. Sometimes you can see them. It's not always.
Really?
Yeah.
It's not hashed.
It's not always hashed. And it's not always changed by an X.
Is there a way to retrieve the hash from the X?
No. Why? We talked about hashes last week. You didn't come last week. That's why you don't know. Hashes are one way. You can never I mean, except if you find a collision. Huh?
I meant the hash itself.
Yeah.
Because it's replaced with an X.
Yeah.
Is there a way to get to the hash, not to the original text?
I'm not sure. I didn't take a look into this, but I'm not sure. So you mean if we go back here, I'm just going to use my. So you mean like, what do you mean here? These are multiple users. What do you mean? Oh,
There is the username.
yeah.
Afterwards, there is an X or a dot that represents
Yeah, like this.
the star.
Yeah, yeah.
It should be the hash, right? But what is the hash? Is it stored somewhere else?
I don't see any hashes here. And this is the first time I'm hearing hashes in the etc password. I don't know. I cannot tell you for sure. I don't know.
It should be, for example, the root represent the username. The second column is the hash normally, but it's hidden here by the star. I just asked if there is a way to see where is the hash.
There might be a way. There might be a way. There might be a way. I just don't know about it, so I cannot tell you anything for sure. Okay, let's go back. Injections. Of course, we're not talking about this type of injections. We're talking about the other type of injections that we like. And these are the most famous types. I mean, everyone trying to get started in web security, he will try to do SQL injection, right? I mean, this is it's like the have to go station if you are trying to go through the web security journey. So it's the most famous type of vulnerabilities. It's also the result of not properly sanitizing user input. Again, it's always all like 99% of the attacks on the servers or like websites, they're all from not sanitizing the user inputs. Because the user inputs, you should always assume it's dangerous. You should always assume that it's not going to allow you. You should always assume that it's going to do something bad to our servers. So if you are trying to write a good code, you should not fix the user input. You should immediately reject the user input if it violates anything that you did set up before. Again, never try to fix whatever the user is trying to do, because there is always workarounds. So you have to always reject if the user is trying to do something which is not meant to be. For example, there is no username that's going to have, for example, something like this. Like username will never have this, like just a quotation, like user name, like quotation in between. If you know that this thing cannot be here, just remove it. Just don't allow the user to use this. If he uses it, just tell him user is incorrect. Choose a user which has only the numbers and the letters, something like this. With this, you can avoid a lot of problems. So user sanitization is always important, and don't do it yourself. use libraries, because you're not going to do it better than libraries. They are meant to do it for you. Also, yeah, again, it occurs when the attacker can modify the queries and inject his malicious stuff. We just saw an example there, the SQL injection. So here the user did inject his malicious stuff, which was meant to bypass the authentication or something. And in a second, we're going to see the injection of SQL, like an example. Yeah, so mitigation for injections is by not trusting the user input and just rejecting anything that seems sus. Anything that looks sus in any way should be rejected. Okay? So SQL injection, this is the most famous one. As I said, it just this is closing whatever we had in the user, or one is equal to one. So this is one of the examples, like the most famous one. And so here we are injecting SQL code into the database. I'm going to show you, I think, in the next slide. Yeah, in the next slide, I'm going to show you an example. And sometimes it's also used to leak data from the database. It's not always used to bypass stuff. It can also be used to leak data. Yeah, but most of the time it's used to bypass the authentication. Also, the challenge that I prepared today, I mean, I didn't prepare it myself, but I took it, and you guys have to solve it. And it has a bypass authentication. This is an example. So let's say this is an example of, I don't know, request select everything from users. So you are trying to select all the fields in the user table where the user is going to be equal. Here, this is coming directly from the user input, and password is going to be equal to the password. So if you inject it with this payload, don't count these. These are just a string. So the payload is basically this thing here. If you inject this here, what will happen? This part going to be closed. So this part going to be closed. Or, so now we have like where user is equal to this, or 1 is equal to 1. So this is always going to be true, because 1 is equal to 1 is always true, right? Then equal, then dash dash, and dash dash just going to comment out everything. And mission secured. Like, you're not going to even go through this, because you already have a condition satisfied, and this is going to allow you to bypass it directly. It's not going to leak a password, but you can get through. Does that make sense, or do I have to write it there? Okay, it's already here. So as you can see here, user is just closed. So this part here is taken from this. See it here? And everything else was just commented out. So it doesn't matter what's the password. We are through because this condition is always true. Does 1 always equal to 1? Good. SSTI. Oh, what does SSTI stand for? I just said it.
Server-side template injection.
Yeah. Thank you. Good job, guys. Nice. So it's server-side template injection. There is multiple types of templates that we use. For Python, Python is using a template called Jinja 2. Have you ever guys heard of Jinja 2? Okay, it's just a type of templates. Yeah, there. It's also the easiest targets, if not written well. And it also allows the attacker to inject Python code and modify the behavior of the template. Now we're going to do the fun stuff. Now I'm going to show you guys the Python that you guys never saw in your life. The Python 4, but it's not Python 4. It's just Python 3. Okay, so does anyone here have any issues in understanding what is SSTI? What is it? Like how it works, we're going to do it in a second. But what is it? Make sense? Which type of languages do we attack when we are trying to do SSTI? Don't watch, please. Man, it's literally Python. I write it there. Yeah, Python. No, we're attacking Python. This application is written in Python, and we're attacking Python. Like the way Python is rendering templates, this is what we are trying to attack.
Generally speaking, SSTI targets server-side languages.
Yeah. I mean, it's the name, server-side template injection. So this is an example. Let's say this is a template, and here you are going to inject here the IP from a user. So the user, doesn't matter his IP, you're just going to inject it here. And this is going to be like the backend application that's going to be getting the IP from the front end. This is how the template works. I will give you guys 2 minutes to just read through, try to make sense of whatever is going on there, and I will ask a couple of questions. Is the code easy? Does anyone have any difficulties understanding anything there? Hello? Does anyone have any difficulties understanding anything here? Okay, now I will start asking questions, and I will choose people randomly. You. What is the endpoints that we are attacking here? Yeah. Yeah, through the code, which endpoints are we not attacking, but which endpoint is here? Like, no. Here. What's the endpoints? No, just slash. This is the endpoint. I mean, this is the route. So this route is basically the endpoint we are trying to attack. And in this route, this code, for example, lives, and there we are trying to get the IP from this template. Get what I mean? So this code basically just renders this template and get the IP from it. Now, let's just imagine this case scenario. I am going to be writing this kind of stuff there. Do you know that this is valid Python code? Have you ever heard of the Python or the EST of Python? Abstract syntax tree of Python. Do you guys know that everything in Python is an object? What is an object?
It's a way of aggregating variables or methods into something that is called a class.
Exactly. Not always a class.
Structs.
Objects.
Objects.
Objects. Yeah. It's just how it's like a wrapper or like an abstraction that we imagine. And everything in Python is basically an object. This thing is an object. A quotation is an object. The square brackets is an object. Even if it's empty, it's always an object. Everything is an object. Now let's take a look. Let's see some fun stuff. Let's just do it here. Now, we are in a Python environment, right? So I'm just going to do this. What is this? This is an object. Let's take a look. Type. I think it was type like this. I don't remember. Yeah, type. So it's class string. So this is just any string, but it is an object, right? Now, let's try to get some stuff. So we're going to get, I don't know, like we're going to get, which example did I use there? Oops. Yeah, the class. So we're going to get the whole class of this, because as long as everything is an object, it can be rendered as a class. So it has a class, it has its own method, it has its own way of interacting with it. Because otherwise, strings, for example, in Python, you will never be able to get like the last element, the first element. You can do this stuff in Python because there is an iterator. And the iterator is part of the class of the object of the string. In C, we don't have this kind of stuff. But here we'll have it. And now, I'm just going to go class. And did give me the class string. Right now, it's just giving me the same thing. It's because it's basically the same thing. But it's the type. So it's class string. It's like the whole class. Like right now, we have the whole class. Now, we can start crossing. We can go to the sub. I'm not sure if you can go directly to subclasses. I forgot. OK. Before we go to the subclasses, let's check the MRO. We will get into a second what is an MRO. Yeah. So MRO is basically what are the objects that we have to get to this point. Does it make sense? What type of objects that we need to make this string? As I said before, we needed an object, which is the base in Python. Everything starts from an object. Everything inherits from an object. You guys know what is inheritance? Okay. Python, imagine it like a tree. And everything, like literally everything, starts from objects. String is, for example, is here. There is something else that will inherit everything from string to be built whatever it has. Do you understand what I mean? You understand what I'm trying to get you? MRO will allow you to get like whatever you have there. Like if I get an MRO of something else, for example, I don't know, if a class is already defined there and it's using a lot of methods, it might give you something different, it might give you more classes because it was inheriting from multiple stuff. Now, let's start crossing. I mean, right now, we're just looking, but now, from the object, so I'm gonna choose object, so I'm just indexing, and I'm gonna look at the subclasses of this. Yeah, so I have all the subclasses. Yeah, I would just call it, because this isn't in a method. So everything you see right now there is literally everything which is under the object. And with this, you can get into literally everything in the built-in. It doesn't matter whether it's imported or not. Anything in built-in, you can reach it. You can reach system, you can reach OS, you can literally reach anything you can import in the built-in. That's why if you're trying to sandbox this kind of stuff, you create some restrictions. Sometimes you get rid of the built-ins. You don't allow the user to use like the underscore, and some other stuff. Because you see, like right now I have literally access to everything. Like I can use the iterators, I can use OS, I can call, I can do built-ins, I can literally do everything. I can also do the imports. And here in the attack, I think the slide was showing I think this offset is from something different. Because this offset, normally in Python, I think, and by the way, again, these offsets change between every Python version. So Python that I have here, I think it's 3.12. If you look at 3.11, it's not going to look the same. That's why this type of attacks are Python version dependent. But now let's look at 40. I forgot what I had there. Iterator, no, it's wrong. So it's not the iterator I was looking for. Normally, I have to look for here through the get file. There is basically here a method called get file. It's literally the closest to the objects. It's the closest method to the object that will allow us to retrieve a file from somewhere. And here, like this thing was called. So basically here, in my example here, I can call iterator. Like right now, I can literally call iterator. I mean, I have to give it here some stuff, but I need, like, you can call it like you normally call an iterator. It will work fine. You get what I mean? And here, so he called it with like etc password, so he did get a file, and now he just did read it. And this thing would just return the whole file. You see? Just from injecting code, we did achieve something that if you didn't know how Python is built, if you didn't know how Python ESC was built, you will never come across this, and you will never imagine that this thing will be even possible. And I will tell you now for sure, in MISC, you will guys have some challenges related to this kind of stuff. So Python jail. So for example, I will create a jail, and you guys have to write some stuff like this that will allow you to bypass the restriction that I will add. And this is with just one Googling, you find a lot of repos with some payloads and also some restrictions how you can bypass them. Of course, I'm not going to choose something really easy and not something extremely hard, because it can get really messy really quickly. Does it make sense so far? Am I going fast? Okay, good. Now do you guys understand what we could achieve in that specific slot just because we understand Python? You see? But all of this happens because we are not restricting the user inputs. We are allowing the user to do anything he wants. Sometimes we can like remove this. Like the user is not allowed to use the brackets, but there is ways around it. I will just allow you guys to Google it to find out how you can call functions without doing the call. And you know, I can create this whole thing just with numbers without using a single letter, all numbers. Another thing, I can create this whole thing with just booleans, with just true and false. I don't need anything else. I can achieve the same thing with just true and false. It's mind-blowing what people do, like in this, like with these restrictions. It's really mind-blowing, especially in Python. So if you have some free time, just Google Python gels, escapes, or whatever, something like this, and you will see a lot of payloads that are mind-blowing. Okay, now we are done with the injections. I hope you guys understand the injections a little bit. Now we're gonna go through the authentication. Okay, so you have time. Authentication, it's related to weak password policies. This is also one type of the authentication weaknesses. There's also improper session token management. So I don't know, you're gonna be using the token somewhere which is not meant to be used. You're not gonna use like I don't know, something related to the token itself. For example, GWT, you're not gonna use a proper encryption for the token, or you're gonna leave like the signature. You're gonna use the signature somewhere, or something like this. Authentication is always related to allowing someone to access a website or to access a session he's not meant to access. For example, an admin session. How it can be is either by bypassing or by stealing or by mimicking. Okay, you will tell it like you are someone you are not meant to be. For example, the easiest case scenario that I can think of, one doesn't have the GWT token or anything. You're gonna query your token from, sorry, not GWT. It will have GWT token, but the way you're querying your token from the server, so you are posting, you are asking the server, why are we posting? Because we are asking the server to give us something back. So we are posting to the server, and in our requests, we're gonna tell it that we are admin. For example, there is like, you will see from the logic that the way the server understands whether you are an admin or no, or whether it should give you a token which is with admin privilege or no, it might be simply like here with like a flag, admin, true, something like this. If you see this in the code and you just add it in your code, you will just bypass it without having any admin password. You see, because the token you are getting, it has an admin privilege. You understand what I mean? So these type of attacks, they are part of the authentication, but they are mostly related to the logic of the application. What is wrong with me? To the logic of the application. Yeah, that's why 2FA always enable it. Multi-factor authentication. So that if, in a way, I don't know, in some another universe, someone stole your password, he cannot get into your account, but because there is a second authentication mechanism. Okay? Yeah?
What if someone loses his way of authentication? For example, he lost his phone in the sea or whatever. And
as long as you have access to your account, all your multi-factor. So multi-factor authentication, it works inside another application, right? For example, there is Microsoft Authenticator, there is Google Authenticator. This type of application, you will have an account with them, right? As long as you know the account, then you can get through it. Sometimes they will ask you for some more details because you obviously cannot tell them, here's my password, here's my email, just get me through, because then it will just you will just lose the whole point of the security. Sometimes they will send you an SMS to your phone number. Sometimes they will ask you about your previous email, some questions like this. So if you lose all of this, then rip, then I don't know. Or if you know someone who's working for Google, he might get it back to you. Okay, so GWT token, I just wanted to add this. So the GWT token, or the session token, is split into 3 parts. These 3 parts, here is the payload, is basically what you're requesting. This signature, this should be unbreakable. If this is broken or if this is lost, you are doomed, like your session is doomed. And here we have the header. Here, you basically define which type of encryption you're using here and how your GWT token should be processed. Okay, all of this will be base 64, and between them there is a dot. Okay, so if we request, if we try to use like Google, for example, and we open like a post, like the Barb suite, and we see the request we are querying, you will see that this is everywhere. Okay. You don't have to understand in depth how this works, because this is another step after you understand how the authentication of a user and a password works. Then this comes to, but I'm just giving you guys an idea, like an outlook. What is this? There will be, I think there will be no challenge related to JWT tokens in CTF, but if you are considering this as a future career, this is your way to go. Most of the problems you will find are with the JWT token. It's really hard to misconfigure, and yeah, just pay attention to this. Like in my first internship, it was related to cloud pen testing, but most cloud applications have also a web application running there. Like, you really cannot believe how many applications have like either a wrong encryption algorithm used here, or like they don't have a sanitization for the whole JWT token, or they have some sort of problem. This should be well handled. Cross-site. Okay, cross-site. This is the most, like in cross-site scripting, like the most famous one is the XSS. And it happens when we don't, again, as I said, when we don't sanitize the user input. Sanitizing the user input is basically what's literally it's the only thing that can mitigate everything. Sanitization, in a way, you are rejecting what is not allowed. You're not modifying, you're not removing, you're not adding, you are rejecting. Okay? This is an example. So inside an image, basically you can call JavaScript alert XSS. This will inject this code and will run it in the front end. Yeah. So it happens again when we don't sanitize the user input that is displayed to the other users. This type of attacks is especially dangerous because you are the target, not the main server. So basically, when you are doing XSS, most of the time you're trying to attack someone else. You're not trying to attack the server itself, because it's front-end based. So it's only displayed to us, like to the client. But it's also good because you can steal a lot of information. You can steal a session. You can steal, for example, if there is most of the time in CTFs, there is a bot with an admin with admin privilege. You will steal a session of this bot. If you steal a session of this bot, you can get admin access to the server. So this is how it can be, like how the proof of concept looks like in CTF. Because in CTF, we cannot like steal a session of someone else. It's going to be useless because someone else is just another player. You get what I mean? Yeah. So the end goal is to make the victim either open a vulnerable page with the injection payload or do something to his front end. Try to modify his front end if it's stored, or just make him do something, like inject it somewhere where he can use it, or just use it directly in the website. Okay? Does it make sense? Is everything, did you guys understand everything here? I mean, there will be no XSS in the CTF, I can tell you for sure. And so it's just for future reference. If you are gonna have another, like if we have like the next cybersecurity day, it's gonna be much harder than this one. And we will have like this kind of attacks because they're considered to be a little bit more advanced. They require you to redirect a bot to something, make a bot do something for you, and then you will steal the session, then use the session to, you see, it's not as easy as doing this stuff. Like, it's not like this. It's not the same. Also, this will require a little bit of Python programming, and you have to know how to use Barb Suite and some other stuff. Now, automation. So if you want to learn the language, you have to learn it from the natives. So you have to go to Australia, just find like a Python there and just ask it some questions and it will help you. So again, Python is a scripting language. You have to learn it first as a scripting language. And also, if you are trying to attack a website which is running on Python, you have to learn Python as a language on its own. Because there's no way you just know how to script something in Python. You will come across this EST and you will know how to use it, like the abstract syntax tree that we talked about there. You understand? So it's both sides. So not only in Python. I just mentioned here Python because it can be used in both ways. So you learn it to know how to attack Python websites, and also you learn it to automate stuff. Okay? And the famous library that we are going to be using for our challenge, at least I will solve the challenge in like 3 different ways. One of them will be with the Python request library. So if nobody solved it, if someone solved it, he will just display it to us. Okay, now we can go through the tools. Do you guys know which tool is this? I mean, it looks ugly here, but yeah? Yes. Which version? I'm not expecting anyone to know the version, but it's fine. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is very old. Yes. But I just wanted to add it there. So again, all the pictures, all the images, they're not from me, except the ones with the code. Like those are from me, but the other ones all are taken from Google. I don't get any credits from this. In case someone is trying to complain why I'm using these pictures and I'm not adding reference, I'm telling you guys, the reference is Google. Okay. So what is Barb Suite? Barb Suite is basically a proxy. Do you guys know what is a proxy? Please?
It's something that can be in the middle between the user and the server.
Exactly. That's the word. You want to add more?
I guess. Also has a few features sometimes, like load balancing and stuff like that.
Yeah. Good. So proxy is just another computer that will just stand in between here. It has a lot of use cases. For example, when you are talking about reverse proxy, what does a reverse proxy serve for? We don't want the IP of the server to be displayed. We don't want anyone to know the IP of the server. Why? Because if someone knows the IP of the server, they might try to brute force it. They might try to attack it. They might try to do something called DOS attack or DDoS attack, like denial of service attack. We don't want the IP of the server to be displayed to anyone. We don't want anyone to know it. That's why we make this kind of computers in between that serves as a reverse proxy. So they are like jumps where the request will jump through to reach us, and the client will only be able to see the IP of this. And if they are trying to attack this, it's fine. This is going to die. Another one will be already serving there because there will be a load balancer. Like big application, they're not going to have one server there. There's no way. Okay? So again, proxies are just something in between. So a proxy is any computer in between or any tool in between. Barb Suite serves the same, is working the same way. Like before your request gonna reach the server, they're just gonna get your package before they are shipped, and they're gonna either analyze them and tell you like what you are trying to do, or they even allow you to intercept them. So like the lowest point, like in the OS model, before they are sent in the physical layer, you can actually modify them. So you can specify, for example, some stuff you want, like here, I don't know, like the header. For example, here in the website, you did give the user as user, password as admin, and here in the proxy, you did intercept the request and you change the password to the SQL thing. Like this case scenario means the request that you sent was modified here, but the server will only know how it was here. See what I mean? And because everything here is local, and also you have to use the browser. I mean, if you add your browser as a proxy, it's fine. But if you don't add your browser as a proxy, you can use Chromium from Barb Suite, and by default, it doesn't have to do the encryption and decryption because it's from there. So it has already the key. So I mean, there is encryption there, but the proxy knows it, so it will read through. Yeah, so it's a good web traffic analyzer. What is the other web traffic analyzer that we learned in the previous couple of sessions? Wireshark, good. Wireshark. So learning also, in addition of all of this in web, you also have to learn how to use the browser developer tool. Do you guys know what is a browser developer tool? Please tell us.
I know a little bit, like whenever you can open any browser and you can kind of right click and inspect, and it has all the networks and everything else you see, you can inspect there. And
So when you click right on a website to inspect elements, this is what we call the browser developer tool. So there it will allow you to modify the front end. It will allow you to look at all the requests that are happening. It will allow you to write JavaScript that will be run on the server, on the front end directly. It will allow you to do a lot of things. Mastering this is also important, especially if you are testing something in the front end. Okay? And the last but not least is Postman. Postman is for people that don't want to use curl. Do you guys know what is curl? CURL. Curl allows you to send requests. You can do the same thing with Python request library. And basically, people that don't know how to use the command line and don't know how to program, they use Postman because it just like clicks like it's, you know, like just clicks. Yeah. So this is from another. Yeah, we can do like a demo. We can look at what does the traffic looks like through the Barb suite. So I have it open? No, I don't have it open. Okay. Just getting, it's loading, and I just have the community edition because I'm broke. Just gonna start. It's getting started. What do we have else here? Summary. Okay, so we are almost done. Okay, so here you go to the proxy, and then you open the browser. Like here, it's gonna open Chromium. Maybe it's already open. No. Chromium, please open. Okay, it might take a minute. In the meantime, we can talk a little bit about some of the good things about. Oops. Okay. Some of the good thing about Barb suite, we have like here proxy, which allows you to intercept. So here you can start intercepting the traffic. There is also HTTP history. It will allow you. Okay, it's loaded. It will allow you to see all the history of the requests that we did perform. There is also WebSocket history, because HTTP history are basically the history of the API request we talked about. So it's request response. Webhook, it's like doing a call. So SMS is API. Call, which is an online communication that's like a pipe which is going to be reserved between me and the other party, is a WebSocket. And we have also a repeater. Repeater is basically when you see like an interesting request here. We will do it in a second. So I'm just going to do to ctf heilbronn.de. You see how slick am I? I'm doing like right now advertisement of the CTF during the lecture. So this is the website. If you didn't register yet, the position is going to be full, and then I will remove the register button from there. So please register. Also join the Discord server, and if you join the Discord server, please become a participant. To become a participant, you just have to accept the rules. This is how it looks like to accept the rules. So you go to the server and go to the rules. Most likely you're not going to be able to see all of these until you click here on this green mark. If you click here on green, it means you accept all the rules, and then you will become here a green member or a participant. Also, I would recommend using affiliations here just to show them dominance, like to show them how much we are. Like, just do it. Yeah. So yeah, you see, I already cured like here the Heilbronn. Not sure how can I zoom in here. I'm not a web guy. I just know a little bit of web. The little bit that I know, I'm trying to pass it to you guys. So if anyone here knows how to, probably not. Okay. If anyone here knows how to zoom in Barb suite, he can tell me. Otherwise, sorry guys, I'm just gonna try to talk out loud to tell you what is going on there. So basically here, you see this HTTP history. So you see all the requests that are made in order. So first we did the request to the root directory. Most of the time in web, this is always the first request. You are always trying to request the root directory, and then you will see the logic that will give you the redirections that will come later. Here we have mostly the stuff that is happening in the front end, so it are the themes. Here the notifications were loaded because I already have a user. I think here, no, I'm not logged in yet. So now, look, I'm just gonna click on login, and this will run. Look, the URL right now was like /login. So we'll see here, do you see? I did request the login. And now you see basically what was the request and what did like the server respond us with. When I talked about protocol, the most important protocol you have to know is HTTP and HTTPS. So you have to know what are these keywords that I have here. So here we have the get. So I'm trying to get the /login, and I'm using HTTP2. This is the name. This is the protocol name. And here, like the informations related to the request. So we have, like for example, which host we are trying to request. I have my cookie here. It was loaded. You can steal it. I'm just going to regenerate a new one. And here we have some more information. And here we have like how the server did respond to us. Like 200, it means okay. It means like a good response. If it's 404, what is it? Not found, yes. So most of the time when I'm not reachable, I just answer automatically 401. If someone understands it, it's fine. If someone don't understand it, it means he's not my friend. So so it means it's fine. So yeah, these are like basically some common, this is really important. The cross-origin opener policy, this is also important. Later on, when you learn about HTTP, you will understand which parts of these requests and response are important when you are doing your pen tests. But now we are just trying to know how does this HTTP, how does this Barb suite work. So now let's say I find this like this login request interesting. I'm just going to send it to the repeater, and now in the repeater, I can do some modification here. For example, now this is just a GET request. That's why I cannot do anything. Yeah. Repeater? No, repeater is basically just gonna repeat the same request. You can just modify send and it will. So I'm just gonna do here some bullshit. I'm gonna send it. No, repeater means you like the request. Here you can test out. So I wrote here some bullshit. I send it. It worked. Now I can again write some other bullshit. I can send it again. And it's again gonna mimic the same behavior. You understand what I mean? If I go back to HTTP here to proxy, this request was already sent. You cannot resend it. You cannot modify and send. So when you see like a request that you like, you basically always add it to the repeater. Like let's try to do like some login. I'm just gonna do here some dummy login. It's incorrect, and here you will see post. So you see right now post. Before we did get. Look at this. It was before get login. Now it's post login. First we were getting the website. Now we are posting to login, which means we are sending data to the server and requesting something back. So this post login, I like that. For example, this request. I'm just going to send it to the repeater. Now if I go to the repeater, you see I see it. I still have access to the first one, but I don't need it anymore, so I'm just going to remove it. I have the second one. Now you can see the name of the password that we did have. Now I'm going to send this. It did tell me the password is incorrect somewhere here. Anyways, it was because it's resending you. This is a really bad website because it's resending you the whole page. But yeah, so here I can modify, for example, the password if I'm just doing some testing, and I can send it back, and it will test it with this new password. You see? The repeater is super important, and we have also the.
It allows us to send requests another time.
Yeah. The specific request you see it, you can resend it again in the repeater. We have also intercept. Now, for example, we want to do it in real time. So I'm gonna do like some stuff here, and before I send it, I'm just gonna intercept on. Like right now, the intercept is on. So now, if I do submit, you see here, it's like right now they are in between. You see here the request it's basically being intercepted. So now I'm allowed to modify the request here before it reaches the server. And this is important when you get, like, for example, the session, or like you get like the correct password, and I don't know, if you are trying to redo the same request but with the correct form.
Is it detectable by the server?
Yeah. Yeah, there is some ways to detect it. I also wrote an article about this, how to bypass these detections in the cloud. You feel free to read it. I'm also going to do a little bit of advertisement for myself. So if you go to Medium, okay, me about, please. I'm logged in? No, I'm not logged in. Okay, so you guys are not gonna get advertised. But my intra name is basically my username in Medium, and there you can find like an article that I wrote related to literally how you can bypass like these kind of restrictions, how like basically the clouds know that I'm doing this through a proxy or like through a Barb suite, and how to be unnoticed, so how to be stealthy in the cloud, in AWS. Because I wrote this article during the internship, and it was like based on my understanding and findings through the internship. It was after the internship, sorry. Okay, so I think this is it in relating to the Barb suite. I think these are at least the things that I use, or the things that I used before. We have the proxy. You can see the HTTP history there. We have the intercept. We have the repeater. And this is for community version. There is also the professional version. It also allows you to test a website. So for example, if you suspect that some endpoints have, I don't know, some SQL injection or some XSS or something like this, or like DOM-based XSS, are basically when you are able to inject code here. This is the DOM. So if you are able to inject code here, it's called DOM-based XSS, just so that you guys know the naming. Okay, so yeah, as I said, the professional version, they have more stuff. They can also do tests. They can test endpoints and stuff like this. So yeah, please.
So the alternative is to just use the inspect button on the website itself.
Yeah, I can show you that. Yeah, we will do it here with the inspect button. No problem.
Nice.
Yeah.
But this is the tool to make this process easier, right?
Yeah, more efficient and easier.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go CTF42, Heilbronn, and you can see I'm just gonna do here. Untersuchen means inspect, and if you like the best browser to do like to work with this dev tool is Firefox, but Chrome is also not bad. Just don't use Safari. You will be a psychopath if you use Safari. I don't know, man.
But can you also intercept the requests?
No, you can't intercept. No. So here, if I reload, you will see all the requests that were made. So also with their status. So if I click, for example, here, you can see it was a get to the root. This was also the first thing we saw before, and it was had like 200, and here like the request header, the thing we saw like here in Barb suite. If you go here, if you go here, first one here, like if you these informations, all of them will be here with some small modifications. Like for example, the user agent. Like here I am using Mozilla. I think here you will see Chrome. User agents. Yeah, user. Okay, it's using also Mozilla. I don't know. Chrome. User agent. Both of them are Chrome. Okay, I don't know. But yeah. So here you can see the requests and also the response. This is basically the response. Yeah. You can also preview how it will look like, but it looks shit because it doesn't load JavaScript. Yeah. Do you guys have any questions related to this stuff? Please? Mike, there.
Thanks. How is the inspection tools differ between Chrome and Firefox?
It's a different browser, so it's a different behavior, it works differently because it's a different browser. I can't tell you for sure what's the difference, like what is the difference between each one of them, because I don't do web that much. but I know for sure that there is some attacks that can be performed on Chromium, for example, or Chrome, for example, that don't work on Mozilla, even for the same website.
I also don't know, but
Yeah.
I can say in just it's a little bit like because it's developed by two different developers. The Chromium, like Chrome and Chromium are kind of similar, and also the kind of Firefox. So it depends on the capabilities they have given. For example, they have not given. For example, we are using Buffsuite, so we can edit the request. For example, think that okay, Chrome has given that, but Firefox has not given you, so you can't use Firefox in that case. So that's how I guess he means. Yeah.
Not only from an attacker perspective, even from like how the website is rendered with this browser, there is some quirks that are only, for example, in Chromium. Yeah.
My question is, can we use Burbsuit to brute force?
Yeah. But I mean, brute forcing means literally this, I think. Like, if you are going to be doing something like this, keep clicking on send. This is the only brute force that I can imagine. With this, with the community version, of course. If you're using the professional version, it keeps sending a lot of requests if you do the testing.
And then you get a rate limit.
Yeah. You see, there is even a rate limiter here.
Can't you combine it with the Python script to do that?
You mean to do like a request this in Python? Yeah. Yeah. Why? Just do this stuff in Python, man. Just use request library. We have to get going because otherwise we're not gonna have time for the challenge. I'm gonna tell you guys the takeovers fast, and then you guys are gonna start doing the challenge. So this is the summary. This is the finishing touch, and so nobody knows everything. There's no way you will find someone, even if he's like a seasoned or a senior web pen tester. There's no way he will know everything. There is various materials available on each topic. Find what suits you. Don't try to learn everything from the first try. Try to learn, for example, Python, learn how websites of Python are built, how can we attack a Python application, stuff like this. The learning process may be different among people. Some people learn this stuff fast, quickly, some others no. It just depends on your piece, and don't allow this to hold you down. For example, for me, it takes me a long time to understand topics. But the moment I understand something, I can explain it in multiple ways. Some people will understand topic really quickly, but they will struggle to explain something. So it just depends on you. Don't let this hold you down or like give you like this imposter syndrome. Okay? The roadmap might take years of learning. This is not something that will happen just today till next week. So just do not rush things through. Just take it slowly. Each time you do a step, you will feel it like you know more than before. And this is the most important thing. You don't have to know more than everyone else. You just have to know more than how you were before. Think outside of the box always, of course. Sometimes we attack web apps through PDFs, images, and links. Yes, this is true. Sometimes you can write JPEG, like images, that can actually run JavaScript code. It's a JPEG image that will literally run JavaScript code. Again, last but not least, practice, practice, practice. If you don't, I will just put again the meme of the practice guy will find you. Golden tips. Please remember the golden tips. Always read all the materials handed to you. For example, in CCF, try to read everything from the Docker file, from the sources of the front end, sources of the back end, literally everything. Don't miss anything. And then you can start making conclusions. Don't jump into conclusions based on one file or something. Try to know literally everything before you do anything. Okay? Paul, before you go, one applause for you for everything. Paul is the guy who is always in the back that you guys don't see. He's our hidden hero. You can. But now okay, Vidos is also our hero. Thank you. Bye. Also, reverse engineering is really important. So, reverse is always, it's gonna follow you everywhere, and it's a skill. As I said, it's not a category. At least my opinion. Is there any more questions? I think I'm just gonna give you guys the challenges already because there's another event at 4, and I want to give you guys some time to think about it, and then I will show you guys a solution. So this is it. I will try to push things into the repo. I'm gonna close the camera. Vidos, can you put something in the background? Yeah. I would just push it fast. If you pull the request. If you can see web, yes, web chat. Okay, so this is like literally everything. It has DB. Wait, yeah, web and DB, and in web there is everything. Yeah, if you can this is a SQL. It's a SQL injection challenge, and if you can bypass the authentication and reach the website, just let me know. There's no flag. Basically, you just have to show like this I passed through, and you will be fine. Just build the Docker image and you'll be fine. So there's already a Docker image handed here. If anyone have any difficulties in not building an image or anything related to the infrastructure, just tell me before we finish. Are the online people watching this, what I have on the screen, or okay, good. Again, also for people online, you guys can go to this repository. It's under my GitHub, then CSD, Cybersecurity Day, Lectures Demo, Tree Main, Web, and Chal. And you will see the challenge of Web. If you are also interested in the challenges that we did in the past few weeks, you can also see them there. And also, yeah, that's it. There's no also. Also, if anyone is trying to take a break, he can feel free to take a break, even though we only have 20 minutes left. So after 10 minutes, I will show you guys how you can solve it. Yet. So for people that are online, if you solve this challenge and you put like your vulnerable like query that we have to add to this SQL query to bypass the restrictions of authentication, you will also get the voucher. So just put it there how it should look like, or just whatever, what should be the user input and the password to bypass everything, you will get the voucher. Important file. This is the only thing you have to check to spot the vulnerability. Does anyone else have the same issue of Docker inline? Because I have it literally run, like this is how the website looks like. Yeah, here. Oh, I'm intruding everything. Targets. Intercept off. Yeah. This is how it looks like. You just have to give the input and the password. So inputs and password. So from the source code, just try to know here what should you give to username and password to basically inject it into this query to do something else what it was not meant to do. Yeah, I mean, if you build it, you can literally just test it along the fly, like here. Like you can just do this. Yeah. Show me. if you want to test something like this, you have first to try to get an error from the database. Try to give it some sort of inputs that will actually give you an error, so that you know what are the things that are not filtered and what are the things that are actually breaking something in the query. This should be your first step. Try to find a way to return a 501 from the server, or like a problem from the server. Like the database did not or was not able to understand the query that you did supply. This should be your first step. I was going to show you guys the solution because we are a little bit short in time. Did anyone get a crash? Okay, so let's take a look into the source code. I will show you guys first the solution, and then we will talk about it. So this is the solution. Basically, you have to give the username just 1 backslash because this is Python. That's why you have to do it twice. And the password should be this. It looks like what you did before, but there is something here different. we are not using the quotes anymore to close. Look, let's go back to the quote here. We're not closing this again anymore. We are ignoring this. And as long as we are ignoring this, this literally going to be all till here, just in one. Like this, everything here going to become just one string. Why? Because we are ignoring this. I'm going to copy this query and show you guys how it will look like exactly. So let's say, I think I copied it already, it's here. Yeah, so let's say this is our query, right? I'm just going to do this. So this is how it looks like. So from users, we have username. Now, if we are using this slash here, this thing here going to be it's going to be ignored. It's going to be treated like part of the string, and everything here will just become like a string. So this is going to become an str. And now, as long as this is an str, yeah, and as long as this is an str, the password will become a valid part of the query. As you can see, it's already highlighted. And hashtag is also to comment whatever comes after in SQL. So we are using two tricks here. The first trick is basically, let's go back. The first trick is basically using the slash. So the slash gonna bypass. So right now, if I just supply the slash, and they give it here like some random password, you see syntax error. Right now, we crashed the database because it was literally treating this thing that we have in password as a valid SQL code. Again, I'm going to show you guys here. Everything, like this part was inside the password. Like this was literally the password, this. So the password become part of the valid code there. And because this quotation here was going to break our code, we just bypass it with comments. You see? So this thing just going to become like this. If we don't treat like that this comment exists, it's just going to become something like this. And now here, we're just selecting from user, the user that have username or 1 is equal to 1, which means it doesn't matter what is our username. We're just going to go through and get the admin. We can see it again in action. So, or 1 equal to 1, then the hashtag. Sorry? Yes. Yes. No, the semicolon is not mandatory. It's not mandatory. You see, and we did go through, and this is the admin page. Let's do the same thing. 3,000. Now let's do the same thing with the request. So if we had a request, we could test like different endpoints just by sending. So requests, basically this library allows you to send requests. It has also like a parameter called headers. And in this parameter, you can specify what you want your header to contain. Do you guys remember what is a header? This is a header. All of this is a header. Okay? And if you don't give anything here, it's just going to be using the defaults. Okay? And the data is basically the content of the header, the body. And here I'm just recording the response. And this here will just give me back the whole website, because this website was serving back the other page when you go through the admin. Okay? So this is like a way how we can automate the things and try like things fast here. Like here you can just keep modifying stuff quick and just testing in Python. If you want to do it again in a barb suite, you can do it the same way here. So you're just gonna see it in HTTP. I think this is not the website. Yeah, this is another thing. Anyways, we don't have enough time. That's why I'm just trying to go through. It's went with the hashtag. That's the reason why we have the slash. Yeah, the first slash. Again, look, I'm gonna show you guys again. So the first slash will ignore this. So this, imagine it like it's disappeared.
What I meant is in the Python code, the whole select thing is between two big quotes.
No, it doesn't work that way. That's why I said you have to know Python before even doing like this stuff. Python basically renders this thing here as a string. It will render whatever inside as a string. The content here is literally the content that you see here. It's just going to be added there. The query in the end, it doesn't have this stuff. If you want to protect your app for, against this case of scenarios, you have to add them here separately. You have to add here username and password, like you are doing in C. So and here I think it was %s or something like this. I forgot which sign, but this is how you can mitigate it. In this case scenario, it will be really treated like a string. So whatever you're going to put there will be really treated like a string. It will never be added into the query itself. And also in PHP, it doesn't matter the language you're using, never allow the user to add stuff inside your query, because he will always find a way. You get what I mean? Good. So this is it for today, guys. Thank you for listening. We're just gonna do talk about next week. So basically next week I'm not gonna be here. Next lecture is gonna be on Monday, 24th of February at 2 p.m. And this is gonna be the last lecture. And it's also gonna be related to MESC, which is literally anything else. MESC is basically puzzles. It can also be interpreted like the adventure of code. But we will also have a little bit of Python PyGils, like I think we started today, but we're going to do some restrictions, how to bypass them and stuff like this. We might also talk about C gels, because there's also gels in C. But I'm not sure if I will add them or I will just add them in the CTF. I will think about it. So try to learn a little bit about Python ESC, which is Python PyGils. And also PyGils in general. There's also PyGils in Vim. There's PyGils in Bash. Pretty much every language has a way on the quirks how to bypass things. Also, until then, try to practice everything we learned so far and do the registration if you didn't yet. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. And see you guys next week.